Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to The Pulse. In this episode, we've got some unfortunate news across the industry as 4 companies have laid off their developers. There are also some game delays and some guideline changes coming from Nintendo. Without any further delay, let's get into it. Bandai Namco has announced that their highly anticipated MMO, Blue Protocol, will be shutting down for good on January 18th, 2025. This has been a big shock for fans and a blow to the MMO genre. You might be wondering, what's that mean for the highly anticipated Western release? Well, the Western launch has also been completely scrapped. If you remember, Blue Protocol was set to be released sometime late 2023, but as we announced back in June, there was an indefinite hold on the game. The Blue Protocol devs talked about their love for the world and the characters they had created and how excited they were for players to explore it. They said, "We were excited to welcome players from around the world into Regnus." They also expressed their gratitude to the fans who followed the game's development and participated in the closed technical test. It's never easy for developers to say goodbye to a project, especially one they're passionate about. Blue Protocol has had quite the journey. When it launched in Japan back in June 2023, the game saw an impressive start, with over 600,000 players at launch and 200,000 concurrent players. But despite those numbers, it seems Bandai wasn't satisfied with the game's performance overall, which might explain why they've made this tough decision to shut it down. It sucks to see a game with so much potential come to an end. Hopefully, Bandai Namco will carry the lessons and creativity from this project into future endeavors. For those of us who are looking forward to playing Blue Protocol in the West, unfortunately, we won't have that opportunity anymore. Let us know in the comments how you feel about Blue Protocol's shutdown. Did you get a chance to play the game, or were you one of the ones like us waiting for a Western port? Square Enix is officially shutting down its long-running mobile game Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. Nearly 9 years after its original launch, the game will come to an end on October 30th, 2024. For fans of the game, this news might come as a bittersweet moment. Square has already removed Brave Exvius from storefronts and bundles, but for those who've already downloaded the game, you'll still be able to play until the shutdown date. All scheduled in-game events will continue as planned, giving players a little bit more time to enjoy the experience before the servers go offline for good. So for those that don't know, Final Fantasy Brave Exvius was a turn-based RPG that resonated with millions of players globally. The game first launched in Japan in 2015 and was rolled out worldwide a year later in 2016. It stood out with its mix of original content and characters from the broader Final Fantasy universe, bringing classic elements of the franchise to mobile players everywhere. According to estimates from AppMagic, Brave Exvius generated an impressive $896 million in lifetime player spending and reached 19 million downloads across both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. But despite those big numbers, the game has seen a steady decline in revenue over the past few years. Back in 2023, it brought in $21.9 million, and for the first 8 months of 2024, it's only generated $9.9 million. Like many mobile games, Brave Exvius had its heyday, but as time went on, the player base shrank and the revenue numbers reflected that. After nearly a decade of providing content, updates, and events, Square Enix has made the difficult decision to retire the game. For many players, Brave Exvius was a key part of their mobile gaming experience, offering nostalgia from the Final Fantasy series while also delivering its own original storylines and gameplay. With the shutdown scheduled for October 30th, 2024, players still have a little over a year to enjoy the game. Alright, this next headline shouldn't be too surprising. Sony had high hopes for Concord to become the next big hero shooter, but things didn't go as planned. Just 2 weeks after its release, Concord has been pulled off of PS5s and PC. Firewalk Studios game director Ryan Ellis thanked the players who supported the game and acknowledged the passionate community that had formed in the short time since launch. He wrote, "We've been listening closely to your feedback since the launch of Concord on PlayStation 5 and PC and want to thank everyone who joined the journey aboard the North Star." However, he also admitted that certain aspects of the game didn't land as intended. In response, Firewalk Studios took Concord offline to reevaluate the game and explore ways to better connect with players. Sales for the game were halted immediately, and full refunds were offered to anyone who had purchased it. The servers went dark yesterday, September 6th, as Firewalk Studios worked to determine what would come next for the game. While many games face challenges after launch, it's rare to see a title like this pulled so quickly. Concord did have a small fan base, but with the $40 price tag, mind you, Overwatch and the new Marvel Rivals, which are also hero shooters, are free and offer compelling characters and some form of uniqueness, though that can't really be said for Marvels, but that's a topic for another discussion. So Concord's lack of identity and uniqueness made this news inevitable. Now, let's shift over to NDcube. The studio behind the Mario Party series has officially changed its name to Nintendo Cube. Now, before I continue, I know this looks stupid close to Nintendo GameCube, but I promise it's real. The name change reflects the studio's close connection with Nintendo, which has owned the majority of its shares over a decade. NDcube was originally formed in 2000 as a collaboration between Nintendo and the advertising firm Dentsu. They worked on a variety of Nintendo games like F-Zero Maximum Velocity and Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. However, in 2010, Nintendo bought out most of Dentsu's shares, and several former employees from Hudson Soft, the previous developers of the Mario Party series, moved to NDcube. Since the release of Mario Party 9 back in 2012, NDcube has become the primary developer for the Mario Party series, continuing its legacy with games like Super Mario Party and upcoming Super Mario Party Jamboree, which launches in a couple of weeks on October 17th, 2024. Outside of Mario Party, the studio has also worked on other Nintendo projects like Clubhouse Games' 51 Worldwide Classics. In a statement on its website, the company announced that as of September 1st, 2024, it will officially be known as Nintendo Cube. It's not a huge change, but one that makes sense, especially given that Nintendo has owned 99% of the studio's shares for quite some time now. Nintendo Cube's most recent release was Everybody Want to Switch, and just last week it was announced that Animal Crossing Pocket Camp would be shutting down its online services. However, a paid offline version of the game will be available in the future. Speaking of Nintendo, Nintendo has made some significant changes to its game content guidelines for online video and image sharing platforms. As of September 2nd, the company strengthened its terms, adding a new clause and updating several explanations that users need to follow when sharing or monetizing Nintendo-related content online. The biggest change is the introduction of a new clause that gives Nintendo the right to object to any content it believes is unlawful, infringing, or inappropriate. The company has made it very clear that it could stop content creators from using its game content if they violate any of the guidelines. Interestingly, the Japanese version of the clause goes even further, stating that Nintendo reserves the right to take legal action in such cases. Nintendo emphasized that they won't object to streamers and content creators using their game footage or screenshots, as long as the creators add their own creative input or commentary. This means Let's Plays, reviews, and creative edits are generally fine, as long as you follow the same basic rules. However, the guidelines are clear about what isn't allowed. Content that incorporates Nintendo's intellectual property alongside anything deemed unlawful, infringing, or inappropriate is strictly prohibited. That also includes graphic, explicit, harmful, or offensive material, as well as anything considered obscene or disturbing to others. So let's be real for a second. Nintendo has always been pretty protective of its brand, but this update reinforces their stance. Creators need to be careful about how they're using Nintendo content, especially if their videos or streams could be associated with anything offensive or inappropriate. Up next, we've got more layoffs from multiple studios. It's been a tough time for the gaming industry. You and I can both agree on that, right? I feel as though each pulse we've done since May has had one topic of layoffs or studio closures. Today is no different. From Rocksteady to Ballistic Moon, Toadman Interactive, and Tilting Point, the trend of job cuts is affecting developers across the board. Let's start with Rocksteady, the studio famous for the Batman Arkham series and more recently Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Just a little side note, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League was the worst game by far, and I think Concord now takes the gold medal for that. Anyways, they reportedly faced major layoffs at the hands of its publisher, aka Warner Bros. While there's been no official statement from Warner Bros. Yet, anonymous sources from Rocksteady confirmed that staff cuts were made. Some employees even reported being laid off during paternity leave. There are concerns that these cuts, especially within the QA department, will put a strain on remaining employees and could impact the quality of future Rocksteady projects. Meanwhile, over at Ballistic Moon, the studio behind the upcoming Until Dawn remake, multiple employees confirmed they were let go. Initially spotted on social media, it wasn't long before Ballistic Moon officially confirmed the layoffs. In a statement, the company said it had been navigating complex challenges and made the tough decision to scale down its team. While the exact number of people affected wasn't disclosed, at least 11 developers have lost their jobs. Despite these challenges, Ballistic Moon remains focused on supporting the launch of Until Dawn and exploring future opportunities. Then, there's Toadman Interactive, a work-for-hire studio responsible for games like Helldivers 2 and Immortal Unchained. The studio has announced it's shutting down its offices in Stockholm, Visby, and Oslo, with some positions at their Berlin office also at risk. The decision came after a challenging 12 months for Toadman, which struggled to ramp up its work-for-hire business. The company's original title, Evil vs. Evil, released lackluster sales, prompting Toadman to take further steps to optimize its business and aim for immediate profitability. Lastly, Tilting Point, the developer and publisher known for mobile titles like Star Trek Timelines and SpongeBob Adventures, in a Jam, is laying off up to 90 employees. This comes after an earlier round of cuts in January 2023 when the company reduced its workforce by 14%. CEO Kevin Segala confirmed the latest layoffs, stating that the studio has done everything it can to maintain the shape of the business, but the redundancies are necessary to ensure the company's long-term survival. These layoffs could affect as much as 20% of Tilting Point's global team. These layoffs reflect the turbulent times the gaming industry is going through right now, with several studios struggling to maintain profitability amidst market slowdowns and shifting business models. It's a tough situation for the talented developers affected, and we can only hope they land on their feet with new opportunities soon. Alright, and before we wrap up the news, let's talk about some juicy drama that unfolded last week. In a surprising turn of events, Xbox has reportedly apologized to indie developer Jayama Games after allegations that the platform holder ignored the studio for 2 months. The communication breakdown led to a delay in the Xbox Series X and S version of Enotria: The Last Song, a Soulslike RPG with a heavy Italian influences and a unique Catholic-themed narrative. Developer Jayama Games recently announced an indefinite delay for the Xbox version of the game, claiming that the Xbox team had not replied to their emails regarding certification for months. CEO Jackie Greco expressed his frustration on Discord, even going as far as saying, "You can ask Xbox why they haven't answered us for 2 months." He also mentioned that the studio had spent a lot of money preparing the console port only to be met with silence. Back on Discord, Greco didn't hold back. He kept on saying things like, "Obviously, Xbox doesn't care about Enotria, and they don't care about you," referring to the game's fans. The developer had planned to release Enotria: The Last Song across all platforms on September 19th alongside the PC and PS5 versions, but with the Xbox certification issues, that date was in serious jeopardy. However, it seems like Xbox has since extended an olive branch. According to a more recent Discord update from Gecko, Xbox reached out to apologize and is now working to resolve the situation as quickly as possible. Greco has confirmed they contacted us and said sorry about the situation. We're trying to resolve everything as soon as possible. In an update shared on X, formerly Twitch, the Enotria devs thanked Phil Spencer, head of Xbox, for stepping in personally to address the situation. The tweet read, "We would like to officially thank Phil Spencer and his team for reaching out to us promptly. We are now working closely with Microsoft, and we hope this collaboration will lead to the game's release for Xbox as soon as possible." The devs also gave a heartfelt thank you to their community for their unwavering support. Despite Microsoft's apology and everything being smoothed over, there's still no word on whether the Xbox version will be ready for the planned September 19th release date. It's great to see that the lines of communication are reopened, but we'll have to wait for further updates from Jayama Games or Microsoft. What do you think of this situation? Should Xbox have been more responsive earlier on, or do you think things are finally moving in the right direction? Let us know in the comments. And that wraps up the news segment. Next up are new game releases. And that wraps up this episode. As a reminder, this will be the last video under GameWave. We released a quick update for you all on Thursday. Be sure to check that out here. Missed out on the news from previous weeks? Don't worry. Check out the previous Pulse releases here. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.